Okay, we are here in Senate Institutions, and it is Thursday, April 23rd, 2026. And we are reviewing and hoping to vote out H 952, which is capital bill. And we have our staff with us. Oh, it does say one of Manila is going to be here. Hopefully she will be here. But we'll start with the language, and then we'll go to the spreadsheets. And John Gray of Legislative Council is here to walk us through.
Perfect. Afternoon, everyone. Happy April 23rd. I will, in just a second, could I get screen sharing privileges, please, Lindsay? In just a second, I will screen share with you draft 3.1 with just a few tweaks from what you saw yesterday. Some of the changes are not visible because they're a deletion. I will call that out when we get there. And the thing to know is that at this point, all changes you've seen previously are in yellow highlight. They indicate changes against the House, and the new additions are in blue, which for today matches Scott's spreadsheet addition. So some nice synchronicity. Sorry, Lindsay, would you mind granting screen sharing privileges? Thank you. Perfect. Okay. Here we go. Draft 3.1. There's going to be no updates to section 2. So this has your major maintenance figure from yesterday. Has the 25K increase for the second floor fire escape design, because I think we left it at that language. But let me know if you needed something different in that space.
I'm good. Everybody else?
Yeah. I know that there was specific discussion on this point.
Yes.
Okay. The second instance does have a hidden change I'll talk about, but it also has these visible changes. So on page 3, what you see in blue, new additions, 430K in bonding for the Newport Northern State Correctional Facility boiler replacement. That is in addition to the 1 million in cash, right? So that's 1.43 million total. And then a new concept here, testimony that you heard yesterday, 220,000 to Recovery House Inc. Residential Treatment Center renovations. So in total, I'm going to try to do some of the same tracking I provided yesterday. That is an addition of 650K in bonding. So you need to find that somewhere. One of the places it's found is that yesterday you had 350K for the EV charging stations, right? And that is now removed. So if you take that from that 650, you have 300,000 that you need to find in the remainder of the sections to net out.
So let me just clarify or add to that. So the funding for the EVs is taken out entirely.
So those are your updates to section 3, which is funds that flow through BGS for AHS and then these specific projects. Grant programs, there are some changes here. You will recall that yesterday, the change you saw for the historic preservation grant and the historic barn preservation grant was to increase from 300 to 550,000. And you see that reduced today. So you have an increase of 100K from what came over, 400K for each of those grant programs, but against yesterday's proposal, that is a savings of 300K, right? It's 150 reduced from each grant program, totaling 300K, which evens out with the 300 that you're looking for. So at this point, you are even against the proposal from yesterday. And the reason I formulated that way is that we talked yesterday about how yesterday's proposal worked out mathematically. And if we just compare against yesterday's, we should confirm this thing. So 400K for each of those. Okay, I figured aggregate figures. The fourth instance of amendment, this has remained the same throughout the drafts that you've seen. This is at 100K to ANR for technical support, municipalities to design and implement stormwater utilities. There's policy language speaking to stormwater utilities as well. The fifth instance of amendment, I think this is the same as yesterday. This is your cash section. I am not a liar. Yeah, same figures as you've seen throughout the drafts. 1 million that statewide created a partial stormwater compliance, nothing new there. 2.7 million for door control upgrades, same as yesterday. 500,000 for the new Fort Northern State Correctional Facility sprinkler system upgrades, same as yesterday. And I'll just call out again the boiler replacement. There's your $1 million figure, which is added to that 430K in the bonding section. And then same as yesterday, you'll recall that the language for the Chittenden Regional Correctional Facility maintenance and renovations, 500K. Yeah. One of the biggest reductions to call out in this section, again, consistent with yesterday, these are not changes, but just to remind you, the House had proposed $3 million for this installation of Wi-Fi systems. That is now your proposal, a reduction of 2.75 million down to 250K. New policy language on page 9. You will recall that the bill sets out authority for A&R to enter into a long-term lease to use of the structure at the Little River State Park. And that language specifically said that in FY27, the commissioner is authorized, Commissioner of Forest Parks and Rec is authorized to enter into a lease, and certain conditions were specified. If you're interested, I'm happy to flip back to the original language so you can see it, but it's just a 1-word or 2-word change to anything but it here. Instead of saying that the commissioner is authorized to enter into a lease, it's authorized to negotiate a lease. I will call out what I think the intention here is to do is I think there's a desire to see the lease before anything happens. So didn't want to outright grant authority to enter into it before the legislature could put eyes on it. So it's to negotiate. I would call out that even if you didn't have in the section authorizing this, folks are of course already able to talk to folks and try to figure out what to do with this, and they could bring you a proposal for a lease, even if you didn't grant them the specific authority. But just calling out what I think the intended effect is of this change.
Yeah, and let me, because I was going to speak to that, but
No, maybe you may answer my question, so we'll go for that.
so I had a concern, still do have a concern about the generous nature of the existing language, which would allow the Forest Parks and Recreation folks to enter into a lease, and the language that we have received just says it has to have a fee, it has to have certain things, but it doesn't talk about parameters. There aren't any guidelines on the levels of those items that would typically be in the lease. And what I have found is I asked them for additional information, and I'm happy to share it. It's a great project. They received a federal grant, and a substantial federal grant, and so they should have the funding to renovate the house, the historic house. But I've only had a day to look at it. So we don't have time to put any additional meaningful language in this bill other than this, which is to have them have to either, and this doesn't even say come to the legislature. It just allows them to negotiate.
Another way to think about sort of within the track of how the legislature operates, the practical effect of doing this is that it would preserve this section for discussion in conference committee. So if you did have the opportunity to investigate conditions you would like included in the list, and I'll just flip over. This is the list of conditions, page 952, right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8. Perhaps that would preserve time to consider conditions that could be added to these requirements. So that's one functional effect of making this change, is to open up, and just for Senator Benson's benefit, who may be less familiar with conference committees, the structure for conference committees is that you're sort of intended to focus on only points of disagreement among the chambers as to the bill. I say intended to because you can do all sorts of things in conference committee What's really raised is that if you don't stick within the parameters of disagreement between the chamber, someone on the floor could raise an objection on the basis that you hadn't stuck within those parameters. But even then, if someone makes that objection, the chamber can overrule the objection. And in fact, I saw that happen last year with the Ed bill. So it happens. Just noting that that's what people mean when they say, oh, we're just making a tweak here to preserve this for conference committee. It's creating a disagreement in the chamber so that it can be discussed how conference.
I also want to add that I don't think that Forest Parks and Recreation is going to do anything injurious to themselves as far as them to negotiate a lease moving forward. I don't think that they've been reckless in any way, shape or form and past projects that they've done. If they have dollars to move forward on a great project, sometimes we have to trust these departments to do with what's right for themselves.
I thank you. I don't think they would do something injurious to themselves. I do have concerns about the value to the state and not getting what the state should get from.
Again, I think that sometimes you have to trust that these departments who've been around for a long time are going to do the right thing.
Yeah, that's a conversation. But yes, I understand.
So I guess my question is, I'm just trying to understand what the language that's here, listening to the testimony. They want it really to move ahead this summer with the renovations because they're really concerned if they let the building sit another year, there might not be something to renovate. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. I'm just listening to what was said. So my question, John, is as this language sits here, if they are successful in negotiating what they feel to be an appropriate lease agreement with meeting those, who approves that, or what's the process? Can they move forward this summer, or they can't move summer? I'm trying to understand what this does in terms of the project schedule.
In this case, and I'm just going to jump back to the initial language. As received from the House, this grants an FY27, so starting July 1 of the summer, the Commissioner for Parks and Recreation authority to enter into a long-term lease for use of that structure, meeting these specific conditions. So once these conditions are met, which maybe they could already meet them, I'm just saying hypothetically, in advance of July 1, then on July 1, they would have the authority at that point to enter into the lease if that's what's required to make the change that you're discussing. The change that would happen here is they would no longer have the authority to enter into the lease. This is just authority to negotiate. Now, maybe someone would try to make the argument that I think negotiate encompasses entrance into or agreement across a lease. I could see someone trying to make that argument. But the intended effect here would be potentially to delay a process if the conditions are met and basically allow the legislature an opportunity to see the lease next session before anything happens. That's my understanding of what is sought here.
And I also expect that if we do include this language, that the committee conference will change it.
No, I'm just
I
trying to
don't know how
understand,
we'll change it.
you know,
Yeah.
what this limits or allows or doesn't allow
Mhm.
to happen. And
Yep.
so that's, I just heard you say it would not allow them potentially to move forward this summer because we still have to get legislative approval of January or whatever for the actual lease
Right.
agreement. Right.
Yes.
So I like the project. I understand the chair's concerns. So I'm supportive of this change mostly so that we can give ourselves more time to try to either alleviate the concerns of whether it's in, the bulletin 3.5 or something more that we could put in to have it feel more comfortable for us to go forward with the lease. So give that opportunity for the conference committee. Although I like the project, I think that we should do this so that we have that more time to make sure that I guess all the
Understood.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was trying to make sure I understand what the language.
Even though
Because it doesn't-
this would,
Yeah.
unless we had a very clever attorney, that would prevent them from going forward with what they wanted, if this became law, but I think in the end, we don't necessarily expect that to become law, we're looking at better language. The final.
Right.
Got it.
Did you have some?
Was there a time constraint that we're under at all? For moving the bill or
Not only moving the bill for the beginning.
oh,
For the beginning of the-
I don't know if it's helpful, but the specific language here is that the authority exists exclusively in FY 27. So really what's contemplated is that within the next year, essentially,
Right.
this is
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
The grant that, guess it's the Hudson Association.
Yes.
That has a pretty long deadline. The concern was making sure that this project went forward sooner than later regarding the state of the
Starting.
property.
Right.
Making sure that happens quickly, and that's what the House's language had it. Even this later, so.
Right, and it's August of 2031.
Is
It's the grant deadline.
That didn't seem to be impediment at all.
Yeah,
Condition of the bill.
right. But they also said they were expected to have it completed this time next year. The agreement completed this time next year, not.
shall I keep
All
going?
right, are we good or okay with this?
Remainder of the sections you've already seen. So the yellow highlight indicating differences against the House, but that you have seen previously. Seventh instance of amendment is repealing that authority to sell 110 State Street as discussed, both yesterday and the day before. And then the eighth instance, if that's stormwater and utilities language, also previously discussed, effective on passage. And that is if you have the committee vote itself extending on the page 11, but you basically have a 10-page amendment.
And we didn't have to do a strike off.
Didn't have to do a strike off. Yeah. Which makes conference committee a bit clearer for showing what the differences between the chambers are, although I would also sort of understand if someone tried to make the argument that in a money bill in which it's all a limited pool of funds, sort of everything should be touched with, like I would understand that argument, but I don't know how it would be received.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect.
Any more questions for John? Okay. So let us go. Thank you. Do y'all have anything? Okay. I mean, you don't have to speak if you don't want to, just give you an opportunity.
We didn't have anything specific. We were here in case there are any questions of us. Full of information or wanted our instructions on anything.
Thank you. And for the record, it's PGS folks who are. Thank you. Okay.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Scott Moore, Joint Fiscal Office. John pretty much explained already the changes in the language, which are reflected in the spreadsheet, but just so we're very clear. Changes from yesterday, we have yesterday's spreadsheet and today's spreadsheet. Or just the spreadsheet one way or the other. Line 41A, which was the EV chargers from yesterday, is no longer on today's spreadsheet. I removed that, so you won't see it on today's, which is draft 6. Yeah, 41A.
So you're telling us where something is that we can't see, which I appreciate.
If you look at yesterday, you'll see it,
Okay.
but it's gone to there, yeah.
I understand.
So that, as John has mentioned, freed up $350,000 in bonded dollars. On lines 46 and 47, you'll see both of those yesterday and today. We reduced what we had intended to increase. So now the total increase is only 100,000. But in doing so, that freed up another 300,000. So a grand total of $650,000 has been freed up by the changes we made this morning in discussions with Madam Chair. And then I added one more line, that's line 32A. $220,000 for the Recovery House Inc. That leaves a remainder of $430,000, which we added back to the boiler replacement line 29. So the boiler replacement now is 1.43 million between bonded and capital.
So why didn't we take the $1.5 million that was basically offered to us, from BTS yesterday?
Which one from that?
Still $1.5 million that we,
Reallocated dollars.
Oh, because that was for the women's facility. That was, if it had been for general. I was excited about it, but it was just for the women's facility.
A couple notes on that, one of which is, as with all these things, they are basically living documents. And in discussions with the commissioner yesterday afternoon, of that 1.5 million, we found out yesterday afternoon that $500,000 was already gone. They actually had a contract encumbered it and spent it, so that actually was gone. And the other part of the 1.5 million, the $1 million was already reduced as well, just to the nature of actions that are taken in contracts and encumbrances and everything else. So it wasn't for 1.5 million to begin with. But I think you're referring, Senator, goes to the idea of we could, as Senator Vince was saying yesterday, we could take that 1.5 million back, bring up the $500,000 to the women's prison to do other things. But as with all things in life, it's a little bit more complicated. There was less money coming to find out after we ran more reports after everyone left yesterday. So that's part of the discussion as well.
Do you know how much actually is there available?
It's a better question for BGS only because I know we were talking yesterday, but from what I saw from Commissioner Manoli, it was closer to like $700,000 to $800,000, you know, like half of what it was. But where it stands right this minute, because it could change while I'm talking, but in general terms.
Because I thought we heard two kind of things in terms of meeting. One was still trying to, I know like beat this one to death, but the boiler, getting to full allocation there, but also that they needed additional funds to do the bathroom renovations at the prison. So I would think whether it's 1.5 million or 800,000, if we could claw back in that money and get it to those needs, that we would satisfy a couple of things, because they need to fix the bathrooms in the women's prison.
Right, and my understanding is that we do have funding for that.
Well, the 500 we put in there was to make the changes and be able to deal with the overpopulation.
I thought it was for the restrooms also, or maybe this good time question.
Sure. Emily Kosicki, Deputy Commissioner of BGS for the record. So I think there are many maintenance needs at the existing women's facility. One, the most pressing one that we've identified is the bathroom, upgrading the bathrooms, of which we have a rough cost estimate of $600,000 for that work. Separately, as you've heard, there's a desire to possibly make some changes in the spaces due to the number of inmates in the facility. And so as a result, you know, we'd be looking at more than $500,000 just to do those renovations for the bathroom, likely would be our biggest priority. And we don't have an existing funding source to cover that kind of work. Like it wouldn't be easily met within our future maintenance budget. So part of what you heard from Commissioner Manoli was a flexibility to use some of those older previous appropriations to address some of those things.
Whatever's left over from, as I mentioned, things constantly, it's a living document. Whatever's left over statutorily will come back to the bottom line next year. But with that said, all agencies oftentimes, when they know that their money's aging out, will spend it faster or stronger.
I'm just looking at current need.
Right.
And if it's ability for us to claw that back early and be able to address what appears to be, I haven't seen it, I heard Senator Major's description, which tells me it needs to get
Oh, yeah.
addressed. Then that would make sense to me. And also be able to maybe get a little more into the boiler to get that closer. That's just my thought.
Right, and you'll note that we put 430,000
Right.
into that, into the boiler. So we're definitely in much better shape than we were at the house level.
Yeah,
And I also understand that it's a 2-year project. And Joe was saying that he would, I mean, the whole project with the ponds and the boiler.
Not to speak for Joe, of course, but my recollection is he said, whatever you don't appropriate this year, he's gonna have to for next year. And then that's, you know, 2 million this year, 1 million this year, it'll be 1 million, next year, 2 million this year.
just depends how we'll have to phase the project.
But I don't want to speak for him, of course.
So on this, just point blank. I've been very honest right from the start about where I would be on this bill. And it was with the governor's letter, which I'm appreciative of where we got to. We are asking $2 million for a project that we've putting off for 3 capital bills. We are getting closer to it. And I will still be a no on this, and I will compromise. If we can't get to 1.7 million on that boiler, then I'll just be a no on the bill, and it's just the way I'm gonna be. That's my compromise. I appreciate all the other work that's gone on and done. But this is a capital bill. Is it for capital improvements? These things have been recognized. There's other fluff in there that's been put in there that isn't capital, as far as I'm concerned. And that's fine, but this is a project that needs to move forward. It happens to be in my district. That is neither here nor there. We've been working on this for a long time. Get to 1.7. I'll vote yes. I'll hold my nose on the other stuff. And that's the way it is for me.
So it's 250,000
Well,
is what you're looking for.
I'm looking for whatever it is to get it to 1.7 million.
So how do we get to know what that potential clawback amount is? And how do we get it in here?
Some of that
That's
will
what
be,
the committee.
Well, we certainly have more than 250,000 in those accounts.
Correct. I'm also trying to look at the bathroom situation. With the prison.
Right. Right. Which you have, so we have $500,000 in that now. We're saying it's 600,000.
Just for bathroom.
Right.
I guess we just mechanically how we would do it. Not mechanically, but statutorily,
Yeah,
because we make a new reallocation in section 17 that we have on our spreadsheet. That's, yeah, this is all bonding, whatever that amount is within the reality of it,
and then we'd stick it.
stick them out somewhere else.
So how do we find out how much is actually there?
I've mentioned a couple times, whenever that money is appropriated, goes into specific department ID, depth ID is what it's called. And that would really be a question for BGS to look and see which of those, I think there were 4 or 5 depth IDs. And where they stand today and present. I know the older ones were talking about yesterday, had been.
Right. Right. Well,
Reduced, so it's really kind of the 4 or 5, or you know, which ones could they?
well, we have the IDs from the commissioner that are for the women's prison, which is where we have the most funding. So we could take it just from one of those and put some of that into the Newport boiler. And the amount that we need, well, I don't, so the 500 that we have there in the women's prison currently, that was supposed to be for just general
Yeah, my understanding of the language is it would give us pretty broad flexibility for general renovations and maintenance of the facility.
Right, so how much would we need in total? Because if we had 500,000 previously and the restrooms are 600,000. How much of an overlap do you think there is, or would it have to be 1.1 million?
So, I mean, and to be clear, like, the commissioner wasn't asking for any new money. She was asking for, again, the flexibility for some of those previous appropriations for the new facility to be used from the existing facility. So, and I do have the act numbers and the balances that I can go over if that's helpful. But again, so I'm not aware of a specific dollar amount request from the commissioner, just sharing that flexibility would be helpful. Our estimate with bathrooms, which is our identified top need, is at least $600,000. And we are aware of other work potentially coming for renovations to address the crowding.
But we're also looking for more, what, 250?
270 if you're
Oh.
270 to get the Russ's numbers.
250.
Right.
No, it's 430, he's only 270.
Oh, okay, for that.
Just sorry to clarify,
No.
the commissioner had asked for 1 million of flexibility within the spending.
So 1 million total for the 500 and the 600 essentially.
Yes.
So before, yeah, okay.
So then we would be looking for 1.27.
And you had asked about what the number is that's still in the 2021 allocation. And it was mentioned that she has it, so.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, acts and resolves, number 50 of 2021, section 3B1, the appropriation was 1 million. There's currently a balance of $868,850. And there are also appropriations for 2023.
Right, significantly higher,
Yeah,
but
with the
the
balance.
older is what we would like want to use anyway.
And that's total from 2021.
There was an additional appropriation from 21 that's been more or less exhausted. There's like a very nominal value left.
$868.50.
It's 8,000.
800,000.
868,000. All right, and so we would need to take 400 plus the 270 from that. Is that right?
It depends on the
Yeah.
number you're trying to get to, madam.
Well, if we're trying to get to 1 million on line 32,
Then you would need half a million more.
If we're,
I thought it
Or-
was, I thought it was 600. Oh, it's
Uh,
500, maybe we.
it's 500 now, and if you're trying to get to 1 million, at the risk of doing math in public, to get from 500 to 1 million, it means another 500.
Right, I got that one. That math I can do, but I thought we were at 600. Maybe we switched it. Okay,
what might be,
I think
why don't we take a break and do some math and come back? What do you think?
Sounds like you need 700 something, you have 800 something available.
Yeah,
Sounds like that works to me.
yeah.
but if we go with Rob's language that he proposed yesterday, it would say. I remember that. Even if you put more money into the women's prison, what it says, it gives them the flexibility to use that for renovation. And any that they don't use, then moves to the new facility,
Hmm.
right? And that was. what-
Yeah, that was.
So, so it would seem to me it cleaner to just move the whole piece, close that one out. Put what we need in the boiler and then put the rest in the women's prison. And then it gives the BGS the flexibility to deal with that, fix what they need to address the overcrowding, and any that they don't need can go towards the new facility. But it won't be much.
Yeah.
But
And technically that wouldn't take anything away from the women's facility because of the
Right.
500 that we have here, as long as that, which also
stays, yeah,
and whatever's left stays.
yeah. And that's what I would suggest.
Yeah, well, it takes away from the fund balance. That's was my concern.
Well, wouldn't,
But
the 15 million would just stay. We would tap into that. Right?
no, I count everything that has been allocated as the fund balance. We don't talk about
Oh,
the fund balance.
yeah.
But
Gotcha.
that is what we,
So right now, there's 860,000 in the fund balance from 2021 plus a
Right.
bunch of.
right,
So the idea is to take that 800 some odd,
68,000.
add the 500 to it. And then have that be in the line that's for the women's facility, or for renovation, or
Right.
270 of it is for the boiler, so. If it's all used, then yeah, the fund balance would be reduced. But if it's not all used, then.
Yeah, right, then it would go over.
Yeah,
Would-
you know,
keep
could
going.
potentially, if none of it was eventually the 500,000. The fund balance.
The one thing I would point out is the current $500,000 in spreadsheet in the bill is in cash.
So we got.
So we put bond. Yeah. Okay,
So, you know, if you mathematically, if you take 860 some odd thousand, put it to the bottom line. Put 500,000 of that to the women's correctional and then 270 to the boiler. And then whatever remaining back to women's correction. Technically, you were taking money from the women's facility number to reallocate. Now, it's all fungible, it's all cash, it's all bonded, it's all fungible, so. You know, how we're taking out the funding, et cetera, et cetera. It's all one big pot in some ways.
mm-hmm. All right, I'm fine with that.
I think that works. It gets us 270 or 1.7 on the boiler, giving us money to address the prison. And that's a good solution.
Can I just confirm my understanding? Because I think there's maybe one piece I'm missing. You're reallocating 868 from this 20, whatever the total figure is from the 2021. You're applying 270 of that, to the boiler replacement to make whole that provision. Are you then applying the balance of the 878 after the removal of 270 entirely to the women's facility as if you're maintaining essentially fresh the initial allocation, or are you just taking 500 of that balance and then applying roughly 100K to other various
The
things?
first,
Okay, so it's applying the balance after reducing by 270. Okay.
and with the expectation that if they don't spend it all, it will roll over. Into the women's facility again. I mean, I know that it's not, that it can't necessarily be that way, but that's.
I mean, the line item is for, I'll go back and watch the testimony from yesterday, but the language proposed for that line item, whatever the balance is relatively expansive as to facilities for women's population, as I would call it.
Right,
So getting pompous, accepted. Okay. Do you guys want me to leave the room and go listen to that and figure out what I'm going to do?
sure, why don't we, let's, adjourn briefly, and so we can update the spreadsheet and update the language, and we'll get back. What, 10 minutes, 20 minutes? You want to do 20 minutes?
Can we do? We can shoot for 20, I guess.
Oh, if that's, well then, half
Oh,
an hour,
sorry.
do you want half an hour?
Half an hour would be great.
Okay, so we'll,
So I'll need to get-
adjourn, and then we'll be back at 3:40.